this is John from caveonprogramming.com and welcome to a series of tutorials on the collections framework in Java. And in this tutorial we're going to start by looking at probably the simplest and most often used member of the collections framework, which is ArrayList. So the ArrayList class kind of implements an array that's expandable. So I'll type ArrayList here, and all the members of the collections framework are template classes. So after you write the name here of the class you want to use, you always have to specify the type or types of the things that you want to store in the class in kind of angle brackets like this. So let's say I want to put integers in this array list. I'll call this numbers, and I'll say equals new array list, and I'll set this equal to, I need to put integer here as well. So basically wherever I type the name of the class, I need the type that I want to store in it as well. And you can, I'll just do Control-Shift-O to add the import here, Java util ArrayList. And you can specify an initial size for your array list at the start, but if you don't, then I think the default size is 10, so normally I don't bother really. And it's worth noting that, of course, in case you're not too familiar with template classes, you can't put a primitive type there. You need to use the corresponding non-primitive type, so I'll use integer and not int. Now to add values to an array list, it's very simple. There's a method called add. So I say numbers.add. Let's add 10 like this. Then I'll add maybe .add 100, and let's have one more, numbers.add 50, 40. Okay, and you can get numbers from this list pretty simply as well by saying numbers.get. So let's have this out, and I'll say numbers.get. And the get method, you just give it the index of the value that you want to get. So here I've got 3 values. So the index will be as in an array 0, 1, 2. And let's say I want to get the first item, it will be at index 0. So if I run that, I'll get 10. Another common thing that you want to do besides adding values and getting values, let's put some comments here, adding and retrieving, is you want to iterate over all the items in your list, and I can do that for example with a for loop. So this is using indexed for loop iteration, and I can say for int I equals 0, and I want I to go from 0, and I want it to be incremented as long as it's not equal to the size of the list, or in other words the number of elements in the list. So there's 3 elements in this list, so I want I to go 0, 1, 2, and I can get the number of items in the list by just using the .size method. So pretty simple. And let's have a look at this. So, and now I can index the list. I can say numbers.get I, like that, and that will display my list. So let's put this out here. Iteration 1. Let's call it. And then here I've got all the values in my list. There is another way to iterate through lists. The same thing that works with arrays also works with lists. So I can say for, and here I type the type of the thing that's in my list that I want to retrieve. So integer in this case, integer value in numbers. I put a colon and then my the name of my list here, and then this will just set value to each of the values in my list in turn. So I can say sysout value, and that's let's call this sysout control space /n iteration number 2, like that. Okay, and if I run this, then I get 10, 100, 40 again, which are the values in my list. There's one last thing that I'm going to cover in this tutorial, and that's removing items from the list. So we've covered adding. How can you remove items? Well, you can say there is a remove method, and you just specify the index of the thing that you want to remove. So if you want to remove the first one, it will be 0, or the last one would be, in this case, numbers.size -1. But the problem is that you need to be careful when you remove items from an array list, because internally this array list just stores kind of an array, and when you exceed the size of the array, it'll create a bigger array and copy the items to that and then carry on adding to that. So you can imagine that if you remove items from the end, then that's pretty quick, because all it will do is kind of decrement the size of the list internally. But supposing you remove items from the beginning, this is very slow. So I'll say numbers.remove 0. So I'll remove the 0th item, and let's maybe put these here so you can see them working. I'll do Control-Shift-F to format. Okay, so if I run this, so this is the list to start with, 10, 100, 40. Then I remove the last item, 40, and I remove the first item, 10. So I've just got 100 left. But this is slow, because when you remove items from an array list, what it does is it'll, if you remove the first item, it'll then copy all the items, all the subsequent items, one step back to fill the hole, so to speak. So that's very slow. If you remove the last item, it doesn't have to do that, so that's fast. And even if you remove like the second to last or the third to last item, that can be reasonably fast. But if you remove the first item, that's going to be slow. And it doesn't matter here, because we've only got, like 3 items in the list, and we're just doing remove once. But if you had a big list and you're removing items again and again and again from the middle of the list or the beginning of the list, then that can really slow down your code tremendously. So you don't want to do that. And if you need to remove items from the middle or start of a list, then anywhere other than the absolute end really, then you need to use, let's say, linked list, for example, and we'll cover linked list in the next tutorial. One last thing I should mention here is that the kind of collections classes are grouped by interfaces. So all the list objects, for instance, implement the list interface. So you can often see code that looks like this. Let's say list values equals new array list. I need to put the template types in here as well. Let's make this store strings like that, and I need to put the template type on my interface as well. So this is just saying this values variable can point to anything that implements the list interface. I'll do Control-Shift-O to add the import as well. It's Java util list, and we're going to point it actually to an object specifically of the type ArrayList, because this isn't a class, it's just an interface, so you can't create new lists, only new array lists or new linked lists or whatever. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. And as I say, in the next tutorial we will look at linked list, and we will compare linked list with array list, so you can see why you would want to use linked list, even though actually it's a bit more heavyweight and uses apparently more memory than array list. But for most purposes you want array list. So join me again next time, and you can find this code on caveofprogramming.com. And until next time, happy coding.